Now, once investors have bought a number of units, they often chase blocks of units. But is that the right strategy for you? And would you still buy if it was next to a block of housing commission properties? Now, this week we've got a small block of 4 units, 10.9 kilometres from the CBD and just 150 metres to the beach. The units are in reasonable condition with fairly new paint and carpet, but there's potential to upgrade them as the years go on. The units are all identical layout and feature 2 bedrooms with an internal living space of 87 square metres each. Now, there's parking for 4 cars at the rear, and next door to the unit is 2 housing commission blocks of units. So I guess the first question, Tom, is how much demand is there for blocks of units, and I guess blocks of units that are close to the beach?
Enormous demand, enormous demand. Even last Saturday I was doing a block of 4 in Lakemba, which isn't a suburb that you're regarded as being a hot suburb in terms of real estate, but I think there were like 20 people registered to bid there. Every block of unit that I'm ever involved in auctioning, you just see record number of registrations, big demand for blocks.
And everyone seems to want this, but it's getting more and more expensive. So say if you've got a budget of 3 million, there's probably not that many blocks around for under 3 million, is there?
Very rare. That's the bracket everyone wants to go in. So the smaller the block, the more attractive it is for buyers.
So I guess the big question here is, obviously it's a good unit, close to the beach, it's got parking and all the rest of it, but the housing commission next door. Would you generally buy next to a housing commission? Would you recommend that kind of thing?
Look, I've lived in a street that had housing commission and I never noticed it. So I think the whole issue, Chris, is how much of the proportion is there normal to housing commission in a street. So that's the factor I'd be looking at. So close to the beach, if it depends. If there's only a few housing commission properties there, I actually wouldn't think it's a big issue.
And what if there's, say, 90% is housing commission and then there's only 1 or 2 houses that, or 1 or 2 blocks that are, I guess regular blocks?
Well, I think then you're faced with a dilemma that when you are going to be a seller, everyone's going to know that that's a housing commission street, and you've got to take into account that it's going to affect the resale value, and you should take that into account when you're actually buying the property.
Because effectively then you're buying the best house in the street, aren't you?
Correct. Which is generally not the greatest strategy in real estate. But I would say that if it's a small proportion of housing commission, don't let that stop you from buying a great block of units.
And then when people are looking at blocks of units, obviously a lot of people like the control. They can have all 4 units themselves. They don't have to worry about the other owners. What are some of the other kind of risks, maybe with finance or leasing or anything like that with blocks of units?
I think probably the biggest thing is the repair bill. Generally speaking, when something goes with a block of units, because it's far bigger in square metres, it's more expensive. So the cheque that you write out to the agent for the repairs or the tradespeople when you're dealing direct is significantly more. I think the financing can be more expensive. The ratio of money that you can actually borrow decreases because there's a higher risk.
Because quite often once you've got 3 or 4 units, then the banks will actually treat it as commercial, won't they? They might only lend, say, 70% and charge you maybe 10% interest rather than, say, 6 or 7%.
Correct, which affects your return, because if you look at it, it's about input output. So you might be getting a decent return, but if you're paying 2% more in a commercial rate, that does affect your final return on investment.
Okay, so purchase or pass at 2.55 million close to the beach for you?
Based what I've seen there, beach, small block, rare purchase.
And look, for me, I think this is a pretty rare opportunity, and with the current rent of 4.5% before you even do anything, then it's a pretty good price based on that yield. I wouldn't worry about the neighbours when you're only 150 metres to the beach. There'll be a whole queue of people to rent or buy, especially if you do it in the summer months. So I'm definitely going for a purchase on this one as well.